Hello wonderful people, it's Wild here. Today I'm going to be showing you how to build this fantasy medieval tower. This build has so many fun elements, including a towering spire, its castle-like base, and the gradient design on the rooftops. Plus I'll be showing you this build in several different styles so you can customize the tower to suit your world. And don't forget, if you'd like a world download for this or any of my other builds, check out the link in the description below. The materials you'll need for this build are on your screen now. Keep in mind that you'll want to swap out some of these supplies if you're going with a different colorway. Here is the outline for today's build. You can see that it's a circle with an interior diameter of 13 blocks across. You can also see that there are a few blocks missing from the outline there at the bottom, and that is the front of the build where our doorway is going. The darker blocks marked in there are where we're going to be having decorations coming out from the base of the tower. I'm going to start this build by placing a 1 high layer of stone brick all the way around the outline of the tower. Now I'm just using plain stone brick here, but you could mix in some mossy stone brick and cracked stone brick to give it a more aged appearance, and I might go back in and do that later. So there's our first layer. Now we're going to grab a temporary block. I'm using blue wool, but anything, even dirt, would do here. And I'm going to start marking in doorways and windows. So you can see I've got a 2x3 rectangle here for the door. Then I'm going to build up an extra 2 high on either side of this and add in 2 blocks for our window. And the reason I'm placing these temporary blocks in instead of just going straight in with the windows is it'll make it easier in the long run. So now that we've got those in, I'm going to come to the corners and I'm going to build up 3 high. So that's where we have this single block along the outline. Now on the other remaining sides, these 3 sides here, I'm going to build up 4 high on either side of this 5 wide section. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4. And there should be a 3 block gap between them. Now that we've got all of that marked in, I'm going to grab some stone brick again and fill in the rest of these walls so that I'm finishing 1 above the height of these windows. I'll end up being 2 above the height of these 3 high windows. Now that all the base walls are in, we can remove these temporary blocks. In place of this doorway, I'm going to add in a spruce door in the center like this so that it sits flush with the wall. Then I'm going to come inside the build and add in 2 trapdoors on either side. And when they're flipped up and we come back outside, you can see that it looks like we have a spruce wall in this place. Then in all of the windows, I'm going to be placing in stone brick walls. So that includes these corner windows and these ones on the side. I'm going to come inside the build next, and I'm taking some stone brick stairs. I'm going to place these above each of the windows like this, and this is going to allow us to place in some glass later on. So you can see on the corner windows I need to place in 2 stairs, and then we've got just the 1 stair on the other windows, and I'm going to do this around the base as well. Of course, these ones are going to be up a little bit higher. There we go. Back outside the build now, I'm going to add 1 more layer of stone brick all the way around this outline, and we're going to start adding in the decorations at the top. So starting on these 5 wide sides, I'm going to take a stair and place 1 on either side of the center like this. So we've got gap, stair, gap, stair. Then on these 2 wide sections, we're going to add a stair next to the wall. And I'll go ahead and do this on all the sides to make sure they end up matching. I'm then going to come to these corner sections and we're going to place in 2 stairs facing towards each other. And I think we've got all of them done. Next, I'm going to take some stone brick walls and I'll be placing 2 in each corner below these stairs. just like that. And then again on these 2 on the 5 wide sections, we're adding in 2 more walls. Next, I'm going to take some chiseled stone bricks and we're placing these on top of every stair around this outline. Once we're all the way around, I'm going to switch to some stone brick slabs. We're going to add these in to fill in the gaps. So we've got 3 along the 5 wide sides and then 1 coming out from each of these 2 wide sections. I'm not adding in 1 here between the corner. And following that, we're going to add a wall on top of every one of these chiseled stone brick. Let's take a step back and have a look at how it looks. Continuing with our decorations, we're going to take some more chiseled stone brick now, and we're going to be placing these around the outline of the build where we're having our decorations. So you can see that that is on this side, on either side of the corner on these 2 wide sections, and then centered on the 5 wide sections. And then at the front, it's a little bit different because we got our doors, so we'll leave that free. On top of each of these chiseled stone brick, we're going to be using some stone stairs. I'm placing the first one coming out like this, another one on top, facing in the other way, and then another stair on top of that. There we go, so it'll have a nice curve to it, and we're going to place an andesite wall in front of here. So I'm going to repeat this same design across all of the walls, just following on the stairs and then the andesite wall here. And I'm also going to be using these stone stairs to create a decoration around the door. So we're going to be placing in 2 stairs on either side like this. Then we're going to create an archway with 2 more stairs and a stair upside down in the center, and we'll finish off with 1 more stair to bring it to the same height as all of these decorations. So let's continue adding these in. I'm just finishing off by placing in all of the walls, and then we're going to move on to some more decorations. There we go. So in each corner, I'm going to place in a planter with 3 coarse dirt, or you could use rooted dirt here, and then I'm going to place in some dark oak trapdoors. So we'll have a total of 4 of these planters. And this is a wonderful way to be able to bring some more color down into this section of the build, because we can tie in the colors that we're going to use for our tower into the flowers. There we go. Now I'm going to come inside the build to add in the glass to these windows. So you can customize this to match the colors of your build, but for my build, on my 4 high windows, I'm going to have 2 of my magenta glass, then a purple stained glass, and a blue glass. On the 3 high windows, I'm just going to have magenta, purple, and blue like this, and we've got to have that on both sides of the window. And then on these 2 smaller windows up here, I'll just have purple and blue. And I tend to like to go in with all of one color and then move on to the next color. And looking from the outside of the build, you can see that lovely gradient we created. Coming inside the build now, we're going to work on the platform for the next story. I'm starting with some stone brick stairs. I'm going to have these going along each of the 5 wide sections like this. And then I'm going to have 2 coming towards each of the corners. Switching over to some stone brick slabs, I'll place in a little corner shape. And then fill across this 5 wide gap. So when we look from underneath, we have this edging. And then I'm going to grab some polished andesite and some regular andesite to create a checkerboard pattern for this next layer. I'm going to need to break one of these slabs later on to add in my ladder to reach the upper stories, but I'm filling in this whole section for now. I'll come back to filling in the rest of this, just following ahead with this checkerboard pattern. But while I'm at it, I'm also going to go ahead and fill in all of this flooring with some spruce planks, just like this. Make sure you get right underneath these windows by replacing these blocks, and we'll also need to make sure we fill in underneath this door as well. Now that everything is filled in, here is how it looks from above. We're going to start on the next story of our tower, so we're going to need some stripped spruce logs. I'm going to be building up 5 high, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, on these corner sections here of the andesite checkerboard pattern that we've made. So you can see that there's a 3 wide gap, then a 1 wide gap on the corner, followed by a 3 wide gap, and so forth. So let's add in all of these posts. There we go. I'm going to be placing in a door on the front side of the build, so that is the side we already have a door on. Then I'm going to be placing a 1 high layer of smooth sandstone all the way around this circle. So you can see that we're building on top of the checkerboard pattern here, not on top of the stone brick. Now that that's in, I'm going to grab my glass and I'm going to be placing 3 gradient windows on each side. And I can go ahead and fill in the rest of these walls up to that 5 high height. Making sure I also go over the top of the doorway here. Another thing I'm going to be doing once I've got all of these walls filled in is coming to this side here, so the left and right sides, and I'm going to add an extra 2 blocks above the window. Next, I'm going to take spruce stairs and I'm going to be placing one on top of each of our posts. Then I'll grab some more stripped spruce logs and we're going to have a beam going between these stairs like this, and then in the opposite direction as well. And I can go ahead and fill in all of these gaps with some spruce slabs. As well as this center section here. Now we're going to add in some more posts for the next story. So in each of these joins where we have our beams, I'm going to be building up 13 high. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Now that I've got one post in, I can just build the rest up to that same height. There we go. Now on the front and back walls, we're going to be placing a layer of smooth sandstone set 1 out from these posts, so it's on this edge where we have the slabs. I'm then going to create a 4 high window, so 2 of my lightest color glass, followed by my middle shade and then my darkest shade at the top. I'll then build up 3 high, and I'm going to add in a 3 high window, so lightest, middle, darkest. And I should be left with 2 blocks at the top where I'm going to place 1 more sandstone above the height of my window. I can then fill in the rest of this wall with my sandstone. And I'll replicate this on the opposite side. One, 2, 3, and then our other window. And filling in the rest of the wall. Now for these other 2 sides, I'm going to be building up with my sandstone up to the height of the bottom of this window. So I'm going to keep an eye out for that, and I'll check that I'm level, so that's here. So let's fill in the rest of the wall up to this height. There we go, and I'm going to add in a window on this side. And again, surrounding one above the window with the sandstone. So this wall will look like this, and I'll replicate this on the other side as well. Once again checking, I go up to that same height and filling in. And you can check that you've got these walls all the right height, because when you go over the top of these windows, we should all finish one below the top. Next, I'm going to take a temporary block and just connect up in between these posts. And this is going to give me a platform for placing in some of these stripped spruce logs facing outwards at the top of this wall. Once those are in, I can remove the temporary blocks and we're going to add in some floors. So our floor is going to be sitting one below this window, and I'm using the spruce slabs here. And I'm just filling in the whole area again, and later on I will break in the gap for the ladder. There we go. And again, we're going to have another floor, this time at the height of these spruce logs. So from beneath, you can see we have this nice design. I'm also going to be taking a few more of these stripped spruce logs, and I'm placing 2 coming out from each of the posts, one below the top. There we are. Let's take a step back and have a look at the shape of our tower. Next, we're going to be adding in some roofs to these small gables. For all of the roofs on this build, so the gables that are going above here, as well as our pointy spire at the top of the tower, we're going to be creating a gradient like this. So I'm using purple concrete at the base, followed by purple wool and then amethyst, but you can swap out these colors to match the theme of your build. So let's come up here, and I'm going to start by placing in a layer of purple concrete, just 1 high, and it's coming out from this post. Then I'll build up 2 high with my purple wool, and you can see I'm just sticking 1 out from the wall, and then 3 high with amethyst. Now that I've got these in place, we need to blend the gradient. So I'm going to bring some of the purple wool up like this, as well as bringing up some of the purple concrete. There we go. Next, we need to create some edging on this roof. So I'm going to build out first with spruce slabs. So I'm coming out 3 from either side, just like this. Then I'm going to place in some stairs. So we've got upside down stairs here and here, and then some right way upstairs. There we go. I'm going to build out with some spruce logs. So I'm coming 3 blocks out, and I'll stick out 1 from this edge. I'll place 2 spruce planks, and then we're going to create a spiral on the top. So for this, I'm using stairs. And you can use a temporary block or just build out from the wall to curve the stair back down for the spiral. So it'll look like this, and we're going to create this same design over on this side. I like to make sure each of my gradients is a little bit different. So I'm not going to copy my blending pattern from this side over to this side, just so it has a different look. So let's place that in there, and I'm going to make sure I'm not mirroring too much, and I'll place that in there. There we go. Let's add in a purple concrete down here, and I think that's good. Now we need to go in with our edging. If you're enjoying today's video and would like to access some additional benefits like world downloads for this and all my other builds and access to a multi-world server, check out my Patreon. I'd love to have you join my community, and I'd really appreciate your support. And here's how it should look from the front. Now at the front of this build, we're going to create a small gable above this window. So I'm going to start by coming 1 down from the top of this post and placing in some concrete. Then we're going to have wool. Then we're going to have 2 more wool up here and 2 more amethyst. So we should finish just below this window. Now we don't have a lot of space to blend here, but just to break it up a little bit, I'm going to swap these 2 blocks on this side to give it a slightly more blended effect. And I think I might bring the amethyst down here. There we go. Now I'm going to create some edging on this roof. So we're going to start off the same way with some spruce slabs, just building out 2 this time. Then we've got stairs upside down here and right way up on top of that. I'm going to build out again 3 blocks with my spruce log. And just as we have on this roof, we're going to create a small spiral. So I've got 1 plank, then we've got our stairs coming in. And again, curving it back down like this. So it'll look like this from the side and this from the front. And we'll be filling in these gaps in a second. We're going to start filling in these gaps with some spruce planks. So these are going in these 2 gaps here, as well as the corners. And then around here at the back, I'm going to be placing in 3 atop these sandstone blocks. Now we're going to grab out some slabs. So I'm placing a slab coming down on either side of our posts here, And then at the front, we're going to place some in as well. And that'll go on either side of the roof. And I'm placing slabs coming up. Around here as well, we're going to come up to create a sort of archway effect, like that. To fill in the rest of the gaps, we're going to be using slabs, and I'm placing in 2 here like this. And I'm going to go ahead and do that on the front as well. And I'm also going to be placing 2 above that. We're creating a kind of slope here. And around on this side. So let's have a look at this build from all around. And at the front, there we go. We're going to be using more of this spruce to create a pattern around the middle of the tower. So I'm going to come to this top window, and leaving a gap here, I'm going to place in a slab. So there's a whole block gap below here. And I'm going to add a slab coming down on either side. Now in these corners, we're going to place in 2 stairs facing towards each other, and these are upside down. Then, using a temporary block, I'm going to place in a trapdoor in the gap. And I can remove these temporary blocks. So you can see this has created a sort of wavy design. Next, I'm going to take some spruce stairs, and we're going to be placing them on top of these strip spruce logs. And then I'll take some spruce fences and place them below these logs. Now we're going to add some decorations to these windows, and all of the decorations are going to be just about the same. So we're going to start by placing a block of amethyst with an amethyst cluster above it, and I'll be placing a dark oak sign in front of that block. Then we're going to place dark oak stairs going off to either side, and we're going to use 2 at the top, as well as a slab to create an archway. Then we'll place grindstones on the bottom and the top of the window frame and connect it with some fences. So on the 3 high windows, we're going to use just 1 fence, and then on the 4 high windows, we're going to need 2 fences to connect it up. So let's create another one of these decorations down here, and then I can replicate this all the way around the build. The only one of these decorations that's going to be a little bit different is the decoration that is above the gable on the door here, because we already have this amethyst block in place. So we'll do that one last. So I've got my archway and my base to the frame, then we'll go in with our grindstones and our fences. You can see it's just the same design with a couple extra fences in there. So I'm going to do this on all of the windows on this tower, including the ones on the bottom story. And then over here, I'm going to follow the same design, just pretending that I've already placed in this amethyst. So let's get decorating. Now that all of our windows are decorated, we can add a similar decoration to our door. So I'm going to come down here and add a grindstone to either side of the doorway, then some dark oak fences, and I'm going to create an archway over the top with a slab and 2 stairs. There we go. Next, I'm going to add in some planters. So where we've got these diagonal sandstone sections, I'm going to add one on either side of the front panel like this. And I'm going to surround that with some dark oak trapdoors. And once again, I'm using coarse dirt here. And then around at the back as well, we're going to add in 2 planters on either side of that panel. We're also going to have some planters on this next layer up. So I'm going to start by placing a dark oak fence a dark oak stair onto this post here on either side of the large gable wall, like this, and around on the back as well. Then I'll place my coarse dirt on top of that and some trapdoors. So if we take a step back, here's how it looks. We're ready to get working on the spire of this tower. I'm going to start by placing in some temporary blocks, one on each corner and then some coming in front of this 3 wide section. Now to achieve this gradient look like we have down here, I'm going to start by placing in solid layers of each color and then blending in. So we're going to start off with our darkest color, and in my case that's the purple concrete. So let's place a layer going around this outline like this. There we go. I'm going to add in an extra one on top of this 3 wide section, just like that. And then we're going to come back and fill in behind here. So we're going to place in one on either side, and then we're going to create a little L shape coming up like this. And then we're going to add 2 more in here, one here and one here, and over to the other side as well. So I'll replicate this design around on the other sides. So you can check that you're following along the right pattern because this build is symmetrical. You'll notice that I'll already have the first block of the L placed in on some of these sides. So it'll be like this. I'm then going to go in with some more temporary blocks, ready to place in the next layer. So I'll add in 2 blocks to fill in this gap. Let's go ahead and remove all of these temporary blocks. So we've got these ones that I can remove from underneath. And then I'll come inside the build to remove the last few. To fill in this gap here, I'm going to be placing in a barrel like this. This adds a little extra built-in storage as well. Now coming out, we're going to be filling in these corners, starting by placing in a temporary block and 1 more of our purple concrete. And we can remove that block. And we're switching over to our next shade, which is our purple wool here. So I'm going to add 1 on top of those blocks we've just added in, just like that. And we're going to build 2 up to either side. Now to fill in this gap, I'm going to place in a temporary block and build up 2 high. And make sure we remove these as we go. Then I'm going to take some more of this purple wool and build across the top of these gaps. And I'm going to add an extra one coming up in the center of each panel. So it should be looking like this. The last sections of this roof will be made out of the amethyst. So I'm going to start by adding an amethyst on top of these sections. Then I'll place in some temporary blocks. I'm going to be building up 3 high on top of each of these temporary blocks. We'll connect these. And I'll add 2 on top of each of these sides. The last couple temporary blocks I'll go ahead and remove later, but I'm going to place in a block here and then build up 3 high for the top of the spire. So let's take a step back. Here's how it's looking. We need to blend these colors now by bringing some of these blocks down and up, so let's get blending. This is one of those processes where you just want to start and take a step back every now and then, checking you like how it's coming along, and you can always make some adjustments. I like to start by blending the darkest 2 colors, and then I'll come back in to blend the lighter 2 afterwards. I think that's pretty good. Let's work on blending these 2 next. And each side is going to be a little bit different, and that adds to the effect. I just finished the last bits of texturizing and we're ready to add in some more details. I'm going to start by placing in a row of temporary blocks directly underneath this roof. This is going to make it easier to add in our decorations. There we are. Then I'm going to grab some spruce stairs and we're placing one in the center of each of the sides. We want to create a wavy pattern like we have down here. So starting with a spruce slab, I'm going to place it onto this temporary block beside the stair. Then I'll come back up, down, all the way around. So you should find that we will always be up on these roofing blocks in the corners. And then we will be down on a diagonal slab from the stairs on either side. Once all of those are in place, you can remove the temporary blocks to reveal the wavy pattern. And this is such a great way to add a little bit of intricate detail to the edge of a spire roof. There we are. So it'll look like this. I'm going to grab some spruce fences next, and starting on top of these stairs, I'm going to place them up the sides of the roof all the way up to the top. Then I'm going to place 4 on top of the very point. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is going to be where we place in our flag. So I'm going to start with some white wool. I'm going to build out 2 blocks. Then I'm going to come forward and come out 2. Then I'll go back again, forward again. So we've created a zigzag like this. Then we'll come forward and build across 2, and then 1 more coming this way. Now that my ghost blocks have loaded in, I have got a lovely thin line of white waving off for my flag, and we're going to be placing a few purple wool on top of this. Just stopping there to give it a kind of tapered look. Now you can have your flag going in any direction you like, but you want to make sure the direction your flag is blowing is the same as the rest of the flags in your world. So if you have another tower with a flag, make sure it's facing the same direction. The next detail that's really going to bring this build to life is some lighting. So I've got some chains and lanterns here, and I'm going to start off on this top level, where I'll have a chain with a lantern and then a plain lantern, and I'm going to repeat this all the way around. There we go. Now coming back around to the front, I'm going to hang a chain down from this here trapdoor and hang lanterns off of that. Then I'm going to count 2 blocks down and add in a lantern. Then 1 chain length down with a lantern. And then around on this side, I'm going to place in 3 chain lengths. And there we go with our last lantern. So by having them at different heights, it gives a more whimsical feel. I'm also going to be hanging lanterns from these beams that are sticking out from the gables. So that one's just hanging directly off the beam. This one's going to hang a chain length down, as is the one on this side. Another location we're going to be hanging lanterns is down here in the corners. So I'm going to start in this corner at the front, and I'm going to hang my lantern down 1 chain length and then no chain lengths. Then over here we're going to go down 2 chain lengths and 1 chain length. We're going to have no chain lengths and 2 chain lengths. And then finally, 1 chain length and no chain lengths. So you can see that we've got them all at different heights all around the build. I'm back around at the front of the build, and I'm going to come inside to add in my ladder to reach all the stories. So make sure you also place in some torches as you're building. I'm going to add in some more decorative lighting when I decorate, but for now this will light up the space. I'm going to come to this back wall, and I'm stepping 1 to the side of the center, and I'm going to count 3 blocks in. I'm going to remove this andesite, and it should also be 3 blocks away from this wall too. Then I can go ahead and break all of the flooring blocks that are above me, and this will take me right up to the spire. And this is where you got to make sure you place in some torches. If you're in survival, you certainly don't want mobs. While I'm up here, I can remove all of these temporary blocks. There we go. And I'm going to be using some glow berries as my ladder. So I'm lining myself up with the hole and I'm going to hang these all the way down the build, making sure to light up my floors as I go. The great thing about the glow berries is these will also provide some illumination. So once I've got them reaching all the way down to the bottom, let's see, there we go. I'm going to go in with some bone meal and make sure every single block has glow berries growing on it. For the smaller floors, this should be enough illumination so you won't need to place in any lights. Almost at the very top. And you can also see that this is a super spacious build. We've got 5 floors to decorate here. So if you're building this in survival, it would make the perfect base. Now that I'm outside the build, I'm going to start adding in the finishing details of some greenery and flowers, and then I'll show you how this build can be styled with a range of different colours. I like to drape my leaves off of the roof like this, and I have them hanging at different heights. So we've got one coming from here. Let's have this one start up a little bit higher. And I think I might have it finish a little bit shorter than this one here, so let's go down just one more block. And I like to check it from all different angles to make sure it looks great from wherever you're looking at the build. I think I'm going to add one more on the back of the build here, and I'm also going to add some greenery draping off of the lower roofs and these smaller gables. Then I've got a selection of flowers that match with my colour scheme, so you can change these out depending on what colours you choose for this build. Alright, I've finished decorating now, so let's have a look at what I've done. You can see I've finished adding greenery to the roofs with these leaves, and I've gone ahead and placed in my flowers, a greenery, and all my planters. You can see that I've also used some of these pitcher plants. They have a great magical feel to them, and they work really well with the colour scheme I've chosen. Some other decorations I've included is an overgrown feel around the garden, and that helps add to the whimsical fantasy feel of this tower. Over on this right hand side, I've created a rocky archway where I've hung a swing from the center. And to balance that, on the other side, I've created a small seating area with a campfire. I've also used these azalea bushes at various heights to frame the build, and that helps to just add a little definition between this landscaped area with the tower and the forest behind. And one thing I like to keep in mind is that when I'm decorating, I like to use materials that are found in the build for the decorations around the build. That way it all ties together. One other detail you can see I've added here are these knights with their flags in matching colours to the tower, and that helps bring some of the purple down here into the base of the build. Now that this tower is fully decorated, let's check out some other colour palette options. Here's our first variation. You can see that I've swapped out the purple colour palette for a warm orange tone. For the roof, I've used red terracotta, orange concrete, and yellow terracotta, and you can see that I swapped out the glass as well. Another thing I've swapped out is the amethyst that is in the window decorations, and I've placed in candles. I think their warm glow really adds to this build, and it adds to the flame effect. You can also see I've swapped out the flowers to match with my colour scheme, and this really does have a warm, summery, or even an early autumn feel. I've got my build placed in the spruce forest, but one option if you go with this colour palette would be to swap out some of these spruce trees for some custom autumn coloured trees. I've just finished placing in the last couple mushrooms, and you can see that for this next variation I've gone with a mushroom themed tower. So of course for the roof we have a gradient of red concrete into red wool, and then we've got the mushroom blocks at the top. And then for all of my flags I've gone with red and white. For the flowers, I've placed in lots of mushrooms, and then I've used some roses as well because they have that same red hue. I've replaced the amethyst in the window decorations with some pots so I can place in even more mushrooms, and you can see that I've also swapped out some of the blocks in the main build. I've gone with a mixture of calcite, white wool, and white concrete powder for the walls up here, and then I've got dark oak for these posts. And then if we come down, you can see that I've mixed in lots of mossy cobblestone, and some cracked stone bricks down here in the base. And I think that this is a really great way to bring in that kind of whimsical mossy feel that goes so well with mushrooms. With these variations, this type of build would work so well in a fairy style build or in a mushroom forest. For this next variation, you can see that we've gone with a color palette with lots of cyan. So for the roof, we've got a mixture of prismarine, the oxidized copper, and then the dark prismarine, and this creates a beautiful gradient with lots of texture. I've also swapped out all of the lanterns for this design with the soul lanterns because they have that lovely blue hue. For the decorations in the windows, I've opted for these turtle eggs. It's an unusual choice, but it does add a little bit of detail here, and they have that cyan spot to them. What an interesting way to use those eggs. Of course, for the flags, I've used cyan wool, and you can see that I've also swapped out the color of the tower there for the white shades of calcite, white wool, and the white concrete powder. As for the greenery I've used for this kind of build, I've gone with some of the overworld plants, like we've got these here orchids from the swamp, and we've got some cornflowers in the build, but I've also mixed in some of the twisting vines from the nether, which have a really whimsical feel. So here you can see the build in all its different colours. The wonderful thing about this tower is that by swapping out just a few of the blocks, you can really create a build with a different feel. So have some fun and play around and come up with your own colour combinations. This tower would also look great with cherry blossom blocks, or perhaps some mossy blocks, or even swap out all of the colour for natural materials for a really woodland vibe. If you do create your own design, or if you build this build, make sure you join Discord to share some pictures. I would love to see your tower. So now you have a stunning medieval fantasy tower in your world. If you enjoyed today's video, I'd really appreciate it if you consider liking and subscribing, and check out my Patreon to support me further. I'll see you in another video.